They involve replacing the guttural consonant het with the digraph ch or kh. For 10 points each, name this method of replacing each character in one script with a unique sequence of characters in a non-native script. The Wei-Giles system and Pinyin romanized Chinese via this method.
Transliteration.
Yes. 2 answers required. These 2 languages are considered by some to be the same because converting between them is accomplished by transliterating between Devanagari and a Perso-Arabic script.
Hindi Urdu.
Yes. Romanizations of this language, such as the transliterative Hepburn romanization, are natively called Romaji. This language's 3 scripts are kanji, hiragana, and katakana.
Japanese.
30.
Good job.
Toss-up 2. Cells in this region encode sequences via phase precession. Theta waves may originate from the trisynaptic circuit in this region between subregions like CA1 and CA3. A structural MRI study by Eleanor McGuire's lab found that the size of this region was positively correlated with time spent as a London taxi driver.
Like the
Time. No. This region was removed to treat the epileptic seizures of patient HM. Long-term potentiation was discovered in this region of a rabbit's brain. This region has been described as a cognitive map because spatial memory is encoded by its place cells. This component of the limbic system plays a key role in consolidating new memories. For 10 points, name this brain region, named for its resemblance to a seahorse. Yes. Bonus, these things are called windows looking in upon fiery reality, and the prologue to a collection whose first story describes parents trapped in a simulation of the African savannah. For 10 points each, name these things, one of which depicts a man being strangled and is given by a time-traveling witch to the title Carnival Worker of a 1951 collection. Answer, please. No, it's a tattoo. Tattoos connect the stories of The Illustrated Man, a collection by this author of Fahrenheit 451. Yes, in this Bradbury novel, Mr. Dark has moving tattoos depicting the faces of those tricked into joining his carnival. This novel's title follows the phrase, "by the pricking of my thumbs," and a line from the witches in Macbeth. 20. Toss-up 3. John Uri betrayed a plot to kidnap 3 noblemen from this kingdom, known simply as the Incident. The Earl of Arran's mother threatened to shoot him in the bowels during his attempted invasion of this kingdom. The Chaseabout raid was a rebellion against a ruler of this kingdom who employed the courtier David Rizzio. Power. Bonus, during this conflict, Kuwaiti oil tankers were given permission to fly American flags of convenience for their protection. For 10 points each, name this bloody conflict of the 1980s between a Sunni-dominated country led by Saddam Hussein and its Shia-led eastern neighbor. Yes, a video of this U.S. official shaking hands with Saddam Hussein was taken during the Iran-Iraq War. This man later discussed unknown unknowns as Secretary of Defense under George W. Bush. Yes, after the war, this North Carolina senator called for sanctions on Iraq. This future Senate Foreign Relations Committee chair lends his name to amendments prohibiting education about AIDS. It's Jesse Helms. You get 20. Toss-up 4. These creatures possess a Dipshing talisman, which renders them invisible. Actor Jimmy Stewart smuggled the Pangboche... no, sorry. Smuggled the Pangboche hand, allegedly... That is power, great buzz. Bonus, you are trying to analyze a circuit for a problem set due tonight. For 10 points each, you debate whether to use mesh analysis or an analysis named for these equal voltage points. These points share their name with points where a standing wave has 0 amplitude. Yes, using mesh analysis, you find the mesh values of this quantity across the circuit. This quantity is measured in amperes. Yes, you find an equivalent circuit with this theorem, which states that any linear 2-terminal circuit can be expressed as a current source in parallel with a resistor. Use of this theorem is replaced with use of its dual theorem by substituting current with voltage. Answer, please. It's Norden's theorem. You get 20. Toss-up 5. This state's waterfall-rich Arbuckle Mountains are home to the largest Christian youth camp in the U.S. It's not Kansas, but in 1907, the American Bison Society shipped 15 bison to a refuge in this state's Wichita Mountains. A college town in this state is home to the NWS's Storm Prediction Center. In 2014, this state had power. Nice. Bonus. Sofarim used tikkun books to advise this activity, which is performed in the Kitav Stam style. For 10 points each, name this action, which acts as the last of the 613 commandments and is based on Deuteronomy chapter 31, verse 19. Errors like misplacing crowns, called tagin, are corrected with gold-plated knives while performing this action.
Writing down the Torah.
Answer, please. Say again, sir.
Down the Torah.
Yes. When writing a Torah scroll, Sofarim typically use a turkey quill on parchment made from an animal with this status, meaning it is permissible under dietary laws.
Christian.
Yes. Before writing the Torah, Sofarim must undergo tevilah by immersing themselves in these ritual baths, also used by women after menstruation and childbirth.
Do you know what they're called? Zamzam.
That's mikvah. You get 20. Toss-up 6. Early computational models showcasing this property were programmed by Ellen Feder in a role that she took over from Margaret Hamilton. Systems with this property's quantum form can retain scarring linked to their classical analogs. This property titles a 1987 James Gleick book about making a new science that discusses Feigenbaum's characterization of period doubling bifurcations. Curves that resemble many overlapping figure eights illustrate this. 10. Bonus. The collection Being Human shows many images of these animals with human bodies, including a crowd of them dressed in angelic robes and 2 of them dressed in Civil War garb. For 10 points each, name these frequent, slightly unsettling subjects of William Wegman. A Cassius Coolidge painting shows these pets playing poker.
Dogs.
Yes. Wegman's dog, Man Ray, posed with a banjo in a photograph of this blue period Pablo Picasso painting of an elderly man twisted around an instrument.
The old text.
Yes. Fay Ray, an actress known for her role in this movie, inspired the name of another of Wegman's dogs. For Ray's role in this movie, she was told that she would have the tallest, darkest leading man in Hollywood. It's King Kong. You get 20. Toss-up 7. A work by this author opens with a dead couple rising from the ground in the title location to ask people to take their case. In a play by this author, Almsa is disgusted when 2 characters wear costumes to a ball that they had earlier removed from locals. The title dictator of a play by this author requests a ceremonial dish, but is unexpectedly... That's power. Members of this community often worship Ardhanari, an androgynous deity formed from the union of Shiva and Parvati. For 10 points each, give this term for the third sex in the Indian subcontinent, which today includes transgender and intersex people. Answer, please. It's Hijra. This author created the Hijra character Anjum in the novel The Ministry of Utmost Happiness. A novel by this author, set during the time of the Love Laws, features the orange drink, lemon drink man. Yes. Hijra communities are typically led by people known by this term. The Sanskrit word for teacher is also used to refer to Sikh leaders like Nanak and Gobind Singh. 20. Toss-up 8. This sea's oldest known archaeological site, which consists of a shell midden made by the Ortoroid people, is Banwari Trace. A matrilineal culture from around this sea made 3-point stone sculptures of spirits called zemis.
Caribbean?
That's power. Bonus, this author quoted Mephistopheles' line, "Theory, my friend, is gray, but green is the eternal tree of life," in his Letters on Tactics. For 10 points each, name this man, whose love of Nikolai Chernyshevsky inspired the name of his first treatise, What is to be Done. Socialist realism emerged after this Bolshevik leader's death.
Lenin.
Yes, Lenin was fluent in Latin and read the satires by this Roman author, who coined the phrases bread and circuses and who watches the watchman. It's juvenile. Lenin often lambasted this landowner created by Ivan Goncharov. This character's name became a byword for absurd laziness due to his unwillingness to roll out of bed. That's 20. Toss-up 9. The title role of an opera by this composer was originated by Gerald Finley and was originally envisioned as a modern-day Faust. Puccini's La Fanciulla del West inspired this composer's opera about the California gold rush.
Adams.
Power.
Okay.
Bonus. A judicial work named for the city of Turin recounts how a holder of this title received a prosthetic toe after his assassins were tried. For 10 points each, give this title held by a ruler who, according to the historian Manetho, was killed by his bodyguards and subjected to a damnatio memoriae. The harem conspiracy targeted a different holder of this title. Yes, the harem conspiracy targeted a ruler of this name who defeated the Sea Peoples. An earlier ruler with this name won the Battle of Kadesh. Yes, the story of Sinuhe references the murder of Amenemhat I, a ruler of this Egyptian kingdom that ruled between the first two intermediate periods.
God, I'm so bad at these. The middle.
30. Toss-up 10. This quantity and oblateness may be in a positive feedback loop mediated by hypothesized climate friction. An ongoing decrease in this quantity creates annual insolation anomalies and increases glaciation at high latitudes. In Milankovitch cycles, the 41,000-year period for this quantity is slower than precession, but faster than eccentricity. Most of the Earth's value for this quantity is attributed to Theia by the giant impact hypothesis. Precession of lunar nodes is matched to minor changes in this quantity via nutation. This quantity is the angle between the ecliptic plane and the celestial equator. For 10 points, what?
Axial tilt?
Yes. Bonus. In 2023, the European Chemical Agency proposed a blanket ban on more than 10,000 fluoropolymers that can degrade into these chemicals. For 10 points each, give this general term for chemicals that cause cancer.
Oh, carcinogen. Right?
Yes. The ban would include this simple polymer, a chain of carbon atoms completely saturated by fluorine. You may give either its real name or its brand name, an inert coating sold by DuPont.
Yeah, sorry.
Yes. Also on the chopping block is PVDF, a polymer used in industrial pressure and voltage sensors because it has this physical property. A scanning probe microscope's tip is controlled with nanometer precision by a ceramic tube scanner with this property. Answer, please.
Hollow.
It's piezoelectric. You get 20. And that's the half. I have Belmont 220, Kincaid 160. Reading okay? Any protests or concerns from the first half? All right, good luck both teams. Here's toss-up 11. This author's daughter wrote a 2013 novel titled For the Kenyan Man a Day, and earlier coined the term third wave feminism. The title character of a novel by this author helps cut down a magnolia tree during a protest and later leaves poems on her walls for Truman Lind. In a novel by this author...
The Pillars?
Sorry, no. A character is arrested for punching the mayor after saying, "Hell no," in response to the mayor's wife asking if she would be their maid. In an essay, this author described leaving a new gravestone reading Genius of the South for Zora Neale Hurston. In a novel by this author of Meridian, a series of letters to God details a woman's affair with the blues singer Shug Avery. For 10 points, name this author who wrote The Color Purple. Yeah. Your bonus. In 2011, this country's capital adopted a license plate lottery system to incentivize the purchase of electric cars. For 10 points each, name this country whose top-selling car manufacturer, BYD, began as a battery business in Shenzhen.
Oh, China.
Yeah. BYD's D1 minivan was developed specifically for use by drivers of this rideshare service, which in 2016 bought out its main competitor, Uber China.
Lyft, China.
It's a DD, D-I-D-I. In 2021, BYD began sales in this European country, which at over 80% has the world's highest percentage of electric cars for new car sales. Its city of Lillehammer has a battery swap station that can quickly replace low-charged car batteries with full ones. 20. Toss-up 12. This city's KKK-backed mayor, Charles Bowles, was opposed by a young Reinhold Niebuhr. A hunger march beginning in this city preceded an event in a suburb where Harry Bennett led security forces. Power, nice. Bonus, on a visit to a walled cave, a member of this family finds a beloved wooden cross from her childhood that she received as a birthday gift from Torito. For 10 points each, name this family, whose member, Violetta, writes letters to her grandson in the frame narrative of a 2022 novella. This is the family name of the protagonist of Portrait in Sepia. Answer, please. It's Del Valle. The Del Valle family features in several novels by this Chilean author of the magical realist novel The House of the Spirits. Yes, Clara Del Valle temporarily develops this condition after witnessing the autopsy of her sister. She finally overcomes this condition when she gets a premonition of her wedding. 20. Toss-up 13. A piece in this musical form begins with the melodic fragment B flat, G, long C, long A. According to Arnold Schoenberg, Brahms mastered a technique of developing this musical form. Brahms orchestrated a piece in this form from his version for 2 pianos that quotes the Chorale Sant'Antoni. No. The cellist Wilhelm Fitzenhagen revised a Tchaikovsky composition in this form inspired by Rococo music. The movement CAE represents the composer's wife, and a piece in this form that parodies the stutter of his friend Dorabella. The 9th of the 14 movements of that work in this form is dedicated to Augustus J. Jaeger and nicknamed Nimrod. For 10 points, name this form of a piece by Edward Elgar called Enigma. 10. Bonus, 2 answers required. The Harke-Bera test statistic is a function of n and these 2 quantities. For 10 points each, name the 3rd and 4th standardized moments of a distribution. A distribution may be right or left with respect to one of these quantities, and lepto or platy with respect to the other. Yes, skewness measures the directional bias of these low likelihood regions of a distribution, while kurtosis measures how heavy they are. Hypothesis tests may be named for using one or both of these regions to calculate p-values. Yes, low tail area enables the rejection of this hypothesis, denoted H sub 0, that is contrasted with the alternative hypothesis. 30. Toss-up 14. In Estella, King Mesha boasts of presenting this deity's altars to Kamash after reconquering territory lost to King Omri. Both the Amara West and Soleb inscriptions mention this potential deity of the nomadic Shasu, who is central to the Kenite hypothesis. No. William G. Denver popularized the theory that Asherah was the consort.
Yahweh?
Power.
Wait, does it just say God on that?
That's acceptable, yeah. Bonus. In the Union lyrics to Dixie, the South is called a land of traders, these animals, and alligators. For 10 points each, name these animals, one of which represented Winfield Scott's plan to strangle the Confederacy via a naval blockade. Yes. An eagle named Old Abe ripped apart rattlesnakes during the downtime of this campaign. The end of this campaign, on July 4th, 1863, completed the Anaconda Plan. Answer, please. Say again. Yeah. Cartoonists frequently depicted this anti-war Ohio congressman as a snake since he was the leader of the Copperheads. This man accidentally shot himself and died during a legal defense.
Oh, I heard about that.
Answer, please. It's Clement Vallandigham. You get 20. Toss-up 15, rates of this process are the edge weights in a stepping stone model. The rate of this process increases with area in the target effect and co-varies with extinction in island biogeography. This process rescues the dying patches in a metapopulation.
Like a connection? Physical connection?
Sorry, no.
What?
Zooplankton do this process DL, or every day, in a vertical direction. And matrix models the net rate of this process plus birth rate minus death rate equals the change in population size. Open populations can undergo this process from sources to sinks. Barriers against this mechanism of gene flow cause allopatric speciation. Wildebeest and the Serengeti do this process in a circle following the rain. For 10 points, name is often seasonal change in an animal's habitat. Yes. Brian Balmages composed Kiev 2022 as a sequel to his piece Moscow 1941 that is often played by students in these ensembles. For 10 points each, name this general type of ensemble composed of wind and percussion instruments contrasted with string orchestras.
Yeah, well, brass band. Didn't you say band?
Yeah. That is what I needed you to say. Works of this type inspired concert band staples like each of the 6 movements of Percy Granger's Lincolnshire Posy. A suite by Vaughan Williams is titled For English Ones.
Marches. Marches.
It's folk songs. Balmages is from this city, the home of the oldest conservatory in the U.S., the Peabody Institute. In 2023, Jonathan Hayward succeeded Marin Alsop as music director of this city's symphony orchestra. Answer, please. It's Baltimore. Absolutely. Give me 1 sec. Let me pull up the protest form. There we go. All right. You're in Lake Audubon. All right. I still listed now. Okay. All right. The protesting team is Kincaid. Sorry, I'm just going to read this out loud as we do it, if that's all right. The opposing team is Belmont. The score of the game, as it stands right now, and I'm going to do it before the start of this question, or no, at the end of this question appropriately. So it's 310 to 240. Protest on the toss-up, question number 15. The answer to the question is migration. I guess for transparency's sake, I will read to you what the answer line currently says, which is migration or migrating or emigration or immigration. Prompt on gene flow or allele flow until read by asking what is the mechanism. Prompt on movement or motion or synonyms like changing habitats. Prompt on swimming or floating. And I decided that the given answer of I think it was connection was what was directed, was not sufficiently synonymous to changing habitats. But obviously that's for the protest committee to decide. So
my justification is that populations.
Can you give me just 1 second? Sorry, I have to get to it. Yeah. Okay, so the buzz was at the word metapopulation, if I am correct. Okay. All right, so the given answer was just connection, if I remember correctly.
I might have said connecting things, connecting populations as well.
I think there was connection and there was a distinct pause, so I'm going to rule on that specifically because there was no prompt after that. So the nature of the protest, one of the two, answer should have been accepted but was prompted or not accepted. Answer should have been prompted but was not.
Should have been prompted.
Okay. So now I will take your justification for why.
So my justification is that metapopulations are small isolated clusters of populations that naturally decline in population due to their isolation and the ways that they can rebound.
Sorry, can you just go slower because I want to copy this. So I have metapopulations are small isolated clusters of populations that naturally decline. Keep going.
And they rebound in populations when said population centers are connected again. So I feel like I should have been prompted I would have said migration afterwards, but like the mechanism that's at work here is like the reconnection of these isolated populations.
Okay.
So I feel like I should have been prompted.
All right. So this is what I've written down just for exact. I said metapopulations are small, isolated clusters of populations that naturally decline and rebound when population centers are connected again, and therefore the answer should have been prompted. Okay. Belmont, you have a chance to offer a response.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure that populations are already connected, and then the idea is it's migration. It's the action itself. I mean, the land bridge connections or whatever, it's not.
You may want to read the clue.
The exact sentence was, this process rescues the dying patches in a metapopulation.
Patches, so they're not connected to the population. So it's this process.
Still, it's connection is not a process.
We're not litigating it in this room, so I'm just going to take what you say, and that's for the protest committee to decide. So I've written down metapopulations are already connected. The question is asking about the action itself. Is that an accurate representation? Okay. Can I confirm from both teams that I've read all the information that's getting submitted and you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. That's been submitted. For now, we will continue. It's 10 points to Belmont and 10 on the bonus, and we move on to, so there's a potential, the buzz was in power, so there would be a potential plus 20, plus 30 to this side, minus 20, so 70 points if I did the math correctly. Okay. Since we're at a stopping point and it's 3/4, I have 310 to 240 with 70 points under protest.
Okay.
Good luck, both teams. Everyone ready to keep going?
Yes.
Toss-up 16 is description acceptable. A character demonstrates his resolution to obtain this object by burning all the trophies of his former loves at an altar. A poem about this object may have been inspired by a similarly named Alessandro Tassoni poem titled For a Bucket. At the end of a work, this object goes missing and is declared to be mounted to the lunar sphere.
Like the lock.
Power.
What? The lock.
Bonus. In 1901, 60% of all working Jewish men in the UK had this job. For 10 points each, name this profession whose members coined the modern usage of the word bespoke. It's not hairdressing, but people in this profession on Savile Row might provide a British cut.
So tailors.
Yeah. In the 1950s and 60s, Jewish tailors like Mr. Fish provided outfits in this style based on jazz and French New Wave cinema. Youths from this subculture clashed with the rockers in the Second Battle of Hastings in 1964. It's mods. In their early 1940s, British designers created purses fit with gas masks, glow-in-the-dark pens, and other utility clothes during this German bombing campaign that devastated London. 20. Just make sure this is not... Okay. Toss-up 17. George H.W. Bush engaged in this activity with Michael Armacost and Akihito a few hours before he barfed on Japanese Prime Minister Kiichi Miyazawa. Facilities for this activity were popularized by Louis X of France, who died.
Like being in a spa.
No, sorry. Who died shortly after engaging in it. A barefoot Calvin Coolidge Jr. engaged in this activity at the White House before developing a fatal blood poisoning. When she was arrested for treason, Anne Boleyn was watching people partake in the real version of this activity, usually played indoors. An unfinished Jacques-Louis David painting depicts a facility for this activity at Versailles, where the Third Estate agreed to not disband in a dramatic oath. For 10 points, what Victorian sport is the focus of your bonus? Though Mary Berenson largely wrote and edited an 1894 history of this city's Renaissance painters, the book was solely credited to her husband Bernard. For 10 points each, name this Italian city whose native painter Canaletto fittingly painted its canals. Yes, Mary claims she was grappling with this artist in her own Hampton Court guide. This artist of the Miracle of the Slave created a scene of the Last Supper at a diagonal table. Yes. Bernard Berenson claimed every critic had a private painting by this artist, whose works he routinely reattributed to a student of this artist. A shepherd appears below a dark blue sky with a lightning bolt in a painting by this artist. 30. Yes. I have 350 for Belmont, 280 for Kincaid, with 70 points under protest. I'm going to go outside really quickly and just ask them to be quiet. That clearly didn't work. Toss-up 18. A painting by this artist in which a giant man's torso in a fighting posture dominates the canvas is used as the cover of John Berger's Landscapes. In a painting by this artist, a man levitates in the air with his hands bound behind his back by the fates. That painting is part of a series by this artist, which also includes a painting depicting two men in tall grass swinging clubs at each other, titled... No. Fight with Cudgels. Rosario Soria and her mother Leocadia Weiss helped care for this artist after he went deaf in old age. The only source of light in a painting by this artist is a box lantern, facing a soon-to-be-executed man in a white shirt. For 10 points, the black paintings are by what Spanish artist of the 3rd of May, 1808? 10. Bonus in a short story by this author, the protagonist and Joes lick their fingers with that absorbed inward look that only comes from whipped cream after a cook gives them fancy cream puffs. For 10 points each, name this author who wrote a story in which a girl brings a basket of sandwiches, cakes, puffs, all uneaten over to a cottage. Yes, the aforementioned Mansfield story is titled for a party in one of these places, a secret one of which is visited by Mary Lennox, and a novel by Frances Hodgson Burnett. Yes, in Mansfield's story Bliss, Bertha and Miss Fulton admire one of these plants. One of these plants represents Janie's sexuality in Their Eyes Were Watching God. Answer, please. Prompt on tree. It's a pear tree. You get 20. Toss-up 19. The efficacy of drugs with this property is enhanced by the crossfire effect. A common drug that has this property is purified by milking a molly cow and is denoted with the suffix 99M. Drugs with this property are used for theranostics like SPECT. Dosing of drugs with this property is calculated by comparing the effective and absorbed joules per kilogram, measured in either grays or sieverts. Chemicals like fluorodeoxyglucose that have this...
radio label.
Yeah, that's fine. 10. Bonus. A wicked fox spirit from this region consumes her victims' livers in the hopes of becoming human. For 10 points each, name this region where grandmother Samson protects children until they turn 7. A bear woman who emerged from a cave gave birth to this region's first king. Yes, Samson Halmione is depicted in this form, a trait she shares with the Morrigan and the lunar deity Hecate. Goddesses exemplified by this archetype have aspects dubbed mother and crone. Answer, please. No, it's a triple goddess. Samson Halmione is identified with a particularly warm part of this type of location. In a grim tale, a location of this type made up of bread and cake is discovered by Hansel and Gretel. What's the directed answer? That is acceptable too. Yeah. So that is 20. 380 for Belmont, 310 for Kincaid, with 70 points potentially under protest. Ready, Belmont? Ready, Kincaid? Good luck, both teams. Here's toss-up 20. One of these characters dreams of talking in a strange new language to another who finds a cottage with a garden and dogs. Hallemeyer and Fabry block these characters with an electric fence. A man asks if the soul shows itself by a gnashing of teeth when seeing these characters is cramp. A woman mistakes 6 managers for these characters, but doesn't believe that Sulla is one during a visit for the League of Humanity. 10. Bonus. Unlike archaea, these organisms have evolved anti-CRISPR systems that inactivate viral anti-CRISPR proteins. For 10 points each, name this domain of prokaryotic microbes that use CRISPR to fight off infection by phages. Yeah. Anti-CRISPRs and anti-anti-CRISPRs were discovered by biologists studying this genus of bacteria and its phages. Species in this genus include fluorescens, putida, and aeruginosa. with Pseudomonas. So far, anti-archaeal CRISPRs have only been observed in a virus named for one of these objects. Bacterial morphology is classified as spherical, spiral, or the shape of one of these objects. Answer, please. It's a rod. You get 10. Final score, I have 400, Belmont 310 for Kincaid, so the protest is moot. Good playing. All right. Good luck to both teams. We've got Lambert versus Churchill A. Here is round 13, toss-up 1.
My bad. Just leave the toss-ups.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna get anything.
I mean, what?
All right. Round 13, toss-up 1. Patients in this colony were secretly injected with cancer cells, according to a letter from Cornelius P. Rhodes. A pre-reform governor of this colony was Brain Trust member Rexford Tugwell. This colony was the subject of the Foraker Act, the 1948 gag law. No, sorry. Gag law made it a crime to display a pro-independence flag in this colony. In 1950, independence activists from this colony almost assassinated the president during the Blair House plot against Harry Truman. Residents of this colony were given citizenship by the Jones-Shafroth Act. This colony's longtime PPD party has historically opposed statehood, preferring its current Commonwealth status. For 10 points, in this American colony, now a territory with its capital at San Juan. Yes. Bonus, this compound is the simplest alkane that has an isomer. For 10 points each, name this alkane, an excellent refrigerant since both it and its isomer liquefy just below room temperature. Burning a mole of it makes 4 moles of CO2 and 5 moles of water. Answer, please. It's butane. Isobutane is a greener refrigerant than these halogenated ozone-destroying molecules known by a 3-letter initialism. They were banned by the Montreal Protocol. Yes, isobutane can still form radicals, though, because it has a carbon atom with this substitution pattern. Due to hyperconjugation, this type of carbon atom also forms the most stable carbocations. Answer, please. It's tertiary. You get 10. Toss-up 2. In the Ithaca chapter of Ulysses, this character's name is repeated dozens of times with different first letters. Akin to Odysseus, this character blinds a giant with 2 kebab sticks. In one story, this character gets trapped in the tomb of his late wife, a pepper gatherer. This character rescues a king's mare from a seahorse after mistaking a giant whale for an island. No, sorry.
No,
Giant whale for an island. The story of this character is told in a frame story that a wealthy man narrates to a porter who shares his name. This character arrives at a valley of diamonds after escaping a desert island by attaching his turban to the leg of a rock. For 10 points, name the sailor who embarks. Yes. Bonus, Columbia Records issued the first LP in 1948 with a recording of Nathan Milstein as this piece's soloist. For 10 points each, name this piece, in which the soloist enters almost immediately with an E minor theme that gave the composer no peace. Yes, Mendelssohn wrote in this part of his violin concerto rather than let the soloist improvise it. The orchestra is usually silent during these virtuosic passages that allow the soloist to show off. Yes, Mendelssohn wrote his violin concerto to be performed attacca, possibly to discourage the audience from doing this between movements. Traditionally, this action is only performed after each piece in a concert. 30. Toss-up 3. The inverse of this function bounds the magnitude of the Mertens function in the disproven Mertens conjecture. If there exists an integer n for which this function of n equals q mod p, then the Legendre symbol of q over p equals 1. This function is applied to y when defining an elliptic curve. The Mobius function is non-zero for numbers that are free of this function, meaning their prime factorizations contain no repeats. Replacing this function... Yes, 10. Bonus. Venetians initially thought they had lost this battle because the crew of the Angelo Gabriele was dressed in captured enemy clothes. For 10 points each, name this battle where the victorious side was supported by Sebastiano Venier, who served alongside Don John of Austria. Yes, this monarch had his messenger repeat accounts of the Holy League's victory at Lepanto. This Habsburg king launched the Spanish Armada.
Charles? Yeah.
Answer. Yes. After fighting at Lepanto, John of Austria won the 1578 Battle of Gembloux, which forced this man to leave Brussels. His final marriage was to Gaspard de Coligny's daughter a year before he was shot by Balthazar Gerard.
Oh, this is Henry III, right? Henry III.
It's William the Silent. You get 20. Toss-up 4. White borax islands break up the otherwise red landscape of this country's Laguna Colorada, home to a population of James's flamingos. Hikers along this country's Valle de las Animas get a great view of Mount Illimani. Ferries in this country connect the towns of San Pedro and San Power. Bonus, the epigraph of Fahrenheit 451 is this Spanish poet's quote, "If they give you ruled paper, write the other way." For 10 points each, name this poet who wrote, "I am this one walking beside me, whom I do not see," in I Am Not I. This author wrote a prose poem about Platero, an animal made of button with no bones. Answer, please. It's Juan Ramon Jimenez. In Platero y Yo, Platero is one of these animals. Nick Bottom's head is transformed into that of one of these creatures in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Yes, in the poem titled For This Object of the Sea, Jimenez declares you could give back this thing to this thing. A Robert Herrick poem recommends gathering these things, since old time is still a-flying. 20. Toss-up 5. This person was accompanied by a retinue of blue ladies, so named for the color of dresses worn to contrast pearls adorned by Sergio Osmeña. The term edifice complex. That's Power. Bonus. A false detection of the meson, consisting of this particle and its antiparticle, was named for a pun on the name of its discoverer, Leon Lederman. For 10 points each, name this particle of matter found in the upsilon meson. Kobayashi and Mascawa's CKM matrix implies the existence of this negatively charged particle in order to explain CP violation. No, it's a bottom quark. In 2019, Alice detected low elliptic flow from upsilon mesons in a type of plasma named for quarks and these particles. These particles and quarks carry color charge. Answer, please. It's a gluon. Alice is an experiment at this collider. The Higgs boson was discovered by this main collider at CERN. 10. Toss-up 6. This character overcomes the freezing northwest wind with a tablecloth and a set of Appalachian tales compiled by Richard Chase. This slayer of Blunderbore decapitates Lucifer, joins the round table, and owns a belt boasting of Cormoran's death. A fairy urges this character to repossess a castle in the sky that belonged to his murdered father. This character steals a bag of gold from a figure who wants to grind his bones to make my bread. A magical harp cries out, "Master, master," as this character flees. It is Jack. Bonus. The enslaved man Onesimus was instrumental in mitigating the effects of a smallpox outbreak in this city by advocating the variolation method. For 10 points each, name this city where, in a later outbreak, Nicholas Murphy imposed a quarantine of Paul Revere's house. Yeah. The 1721 outbreak was carried to Boston by the HMS Seahorse, which was coming from this colony. The enslaved man Busa led a revolt in this colony, which had a 1661 slave code. Answer, please. Barbados. Onesimus had taught the variolation method to this preacher to prevent the spread of smallpox. This preacher describes his suspicions of witchcraft in Wonders of the Invisible World. It was already directed to me. It's Cotton Mather, though. 10 points. Toss-up 7. Besides the Tractatus, the only book Ludwig Wittgenstein published in his lifetime was one of these texts for children. James Murray used an extensive series of slips to gather evidence for one of these texts. The letter to Chesterfield was written on the completion of one of these texts in 1755. Power. Bonus, William Carlos Williams observed how this sculptor became a recluse who broiled steaks in his studio after the death of his pet Samoyed, Polaire. For 10 points each, famous Romanian sculptor whose animal-inspired works include Bird in Space. Yes. A 1930 Brancusi sculpture of one of these animals consists of a marble slab that can be spun on a pivot. Alexander Calder's first large-scale stabule was a black metal sculpture of one of these animals called Devil. Answer, please. It's a fish. This museum's massive Brancusi collection includes the flying turtle and the miracle seal. This museum's collection lines a 6-story spiral ramp designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. 20. Toss-up 8. Louis Baltz photographed the doors and facades of the new industrial parks in this U.S. state for a 1974 photo book. Julius Schulman photographed the Stahl House, one of the case study homes built in this state's largest city. A 1966 photo book depicting every building on a street in this state is by Ed Ruscha. In a photo taken in this state, a man leans against a fence towards the viewer. Power. Bonus, Lauren Euler sarcastically pondered taking the title of this author for girls in a 2023 Harper's essay about going on a goop cruise. For 10 points each, name this author whose own Harper's essay on the cruise industry was originally published as Shipping Out, but is better known as A Supposedly Fun Thing I'll Never Do Again. Yes. Wallace considered Blood Meridian, a novel by this author of The Road, one of the most underappreciated novels since 1960. Yes. This author reflected on Wallace's suicide and Robinson Crusoe in the 2011 essay Farther Away. This author's 2021 novel Crossroads is the first in a planned trilogy titled A Key to All Mythologies. It's Jonathan Franzen. You get 20. Toss-up 9. This novel's title character declares that man is born to live, not to prepare for life. A soldier in this novel shoots a man from laughter, stupidly, for no reason, before murdering his family. Hamlet pleads to just once be relieved from his role in one of the 25 poems from the notebook of this novel's title. Power. Bonus. Purchasers of this product may proceed to act more riskily in a classic example of moral hazard. For 10 points each, name this general product purchased by buyers to protect themselves against losses resulting from unforeseen events like car accidents or hospital visits. Yes, moral hazard. Moral hazard occurs due to an asymmetry in this concept because the insurance seller cannot monitor the policyholder after the transaction. Yes, moral hazard is modeled using contracts between a principal and one of these entities who may have differing incentives. This is the generic term for an individual in a type of stochastic model in the social sciences based on them. 30. Toss-up 10. A choral work by Morton Lauridsen uses the same text as this composer's song, Sure on This Shining Night. This composer wrote the aria, Must the Winter Come So Soon, for an opera whose title role was premiered by Eleanor Steber, who commissioned this composer to adapt a nostalgic prose poem narrated by a boy. This composer arranged a B-flat minor work of his into a choral Agnus Dei. Power. Bonus. Hercules swears to sacrifice to Zeus if a hero successfully completes his quest to slay this figure, who terrorizes Marathon. For 10 points each, name the snow-white progenitor of the half-human Asterius and the subject of Heracles' 7th labor. The death of Minos' son Androgeus at the hands of this figure sparks a devastating war lost by Athens.
It's like the bull of Poseidon.
No, it's the Cretan bull. The Cretan bull is slain by this Greek hero, who later slays the bull's son, the Minotaur, with the help of Ariadne.
Theseus.
Yes. Cusilius identifies the Cretan bull with the bull sent by Zeus to kidnap this Phoenician princess and mother of Minos.
Europa.
20. Toss up. Sorry, that's the half. And I have a very, very tight score. Lambert 170, Churchill 180. Questions, comments, protests from the first half? Reading okay? All right, good luck both teams. We will move forward then. Here's toss-up 11. Helen Wendler claimed that this poem's author silenced his own idiosyncratic voice in it. This 3-verse poem was its author's only one to be anthologized during his life and appears second in a hymn section of the collection Passage to India. This poem repeats the words "for you" in a verse that describes bouquets and ribboned wreaths and a swaying mass with eager... Sorry, no. With eager faces turning towards its subject. This poem, which was first collected in sequel to Drum Taps, describes the people all exulting because the prize we sought is won. This poem's subject lies on the deck after having fallen cold and dead. For 10 points, name this Walt Whitman poem on the death of Abraham Lincoln. Yes. Bonus, in 2016, the International Booker Prize was limited to authors whose works were not originally written in this language. For 10 points each, in this language used for works, excuse me, by Nobel winners V.S. Naipaul and William Golding. Yes, before the 2016 change, this author won an International Booker for immersive stories like The Turkey Season. Janet visits a planetarium the day before her father has surgery in this Canadian author's story, The Moons of Jupiter. Yes, an author from this country, Ismail Kadare, beat out Philip Roth and John Updike to win the first International Booker for a novel about a general collecting remains from this country. Answer, please. It's Albania. You get 20. I'm going to go get some water really quick just because my voice is a little... This organization was informed on for 25 years by a spy known as Steak Knife. Members of this organization, known as the Nutting Squad, were responsible for killing informants known as touts. 2 members of this organization, the Price Sisters, were convicted for participating in a series of car bombings that damaged the Old Bailey courthouse. This group... Power. An early success in this field of astronomy involved observations of neutrinos, then optical light, then X-rays and gamma rays in 1987. 10 points each, name this nascent field of astronomy that studies sources by observing namesake modes of data describing different types of emission from the same source.
Burst? Yeah, sure. Burst astronomy?
It's called multi-messenger astronomy. That 1987 event was a Type 2 example of these enormous explosions of dying stars. Yes. Different messengers from the same source can arrive at different times due to interactions with this phenomenon, like in the mechanism of the GZK limit. Penzias and Wilson discovered this universe-filling phenomenon.
Propagation, something propagation.
Answer, please.
Something, matter propagation.
It's the CMBR, the cosmic microwave, but yeah. 10 points. Toss-up 13. Wick rotating this quantity yields a Euclidean metric when it is assigned minus in the signature. An invariant hyperbola whose major axis is vertical has intervals like this quantity. Einstein developed a standard for devices that measure this quantity so that they always give the same one-way speed of light. Muons reach Earth without decaying because they experience a decrease in this quantity in the atmosphere. The change in the square of this quantity has a unique sign in the formula for ds squared. This quantity is the vertical axis of a light cone. When traveling...
Time.
10.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, time to go. I guess I can time go.
Bonus. In reference to a 2023 lawsuit over the film The Blind Side, this author declared, "It's outrageous how Hollywood accounting works, but the money is not in the Tuohy's pockets." For 10 points each, name this author, whose 2023 book, Going Infinite, was sympathetic to Sam Bankman-Fried. He also wrote Moneyball.
What's his name? Miller.
Answer, please.
Miller.
Michael Lewis. The Blind Side has often cited it as an example of the trope of people of this race coming in as saviors, an extension of an earlier idea that, yes, Going Infinite was often compared to Walter Isaacson's 2023 biography of this man, which broke the news about this man's denial of assistance for Ukrainian sneak attack.
Elon Musk.
20. Toss-up 14. One of these, thank you. One of these devices appears in an image by Suzanne Kofod, whose dynamic redesigns have been criticized as more exclusionary. A village for these devices is imagined in a 1975 essay by Vic Finkelstein, who pioneered the social model of one concept. George Klein invented a powered form of these devices, which may be equipped with sip and puff tubes to deal with bridge plates. This was the largest type of device that ADAPT activists threw themselves away from during the 1990 Capitol crawl protest. A white figure using one of these devices against a blue background is the international symbol of access. Yes.
Yeah.
Bonus. Michael and Randy Brecker both appeared on a 1975 album in this genre by Billy Cobham. For 10 points each, name this genre that blends elements of jazz and rock music, which was developed on albums like Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. Yes, the Brecker brothers appeared on the album Red Beans by a player of this instrument, Jimmy McGriff. Jimmy Smith popularized this instrument's namesake trio, in which it is amplified with a Leslie speaker. It's an organ. The Breckers recorded a 1978 album partially titled For Bebop, a virtuosic style of jazz pioneered by Dizzy Gillespie, and this saxophonist nicknamed Bird. 20. Toss-up 15. Court examples of these people in Thailand maintained Devasathan's giant swing and sow rice during the plowing ceremony as part of their duties to the Chakri dynasty. The Vindhya Mountains. Power. Buzz. Bonus. Hartree-Field's book Science Without These Things builds up Newton's physics without them, showing they may not be indispensable for science. For 10 points each, name these things. Paul Benesaraf's identification problem poses philosophical issues with treating these things as abstract sets, as in von Neumann's construction.
Maybe axioms? I don't know.
Axioms.
It's numbers. Field's project critiques of position in the philosophy of math and analogizes objects like numbers to this ancient Greek thinker's theory of forms, which he developed in dialogues like the Crito.
Is that Aristotle?
It's Plato. Modak just died. Give me 1 second. Hopefully it comes back. The indispensability argument for numbers was developed by Hilary Putnam and this Harvard philosopher of two dogmas of empiricism. Answer, please. W.V.O. Quine. No points. At the 3/4 mark, I have a score of 250 for Lambert, 240 for Churchill.
Wow.
Good luck, teams. Here's toss-up 16. A man in this profession named Matsumoto Koshiro is the subject of an okubie portrait by Katsukawa Shunko. During the Restoration, Margaret Hughes overcame a decades-long puritanical ban on women in this job. Nativist supporters of an American in this profession named Edwin Forrest instigated New York's Astor Place riot. While working at the Odeon in Paris, Sarah Bernhardt gained fame in this profession. A leading American family in this profession included patriarch Junius Brutus and a man shot by Boston.
Actor.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Patriarchal family's gonna would be like.
The Astor Place riot. Bonus.
Oh, yeah, Astor's-
This scientist spent hours stirring a hot cauldron with an iron rod in a facility she called a cross between a stable and a potato shed. For 10 points each, name the scientist who co-discovered radium with her husband Pierre in 1898. Yes. New Jersey's radium girls got sick in a factory making these objects, whose signature sound was produced by mechanical escapements.
Watches, direct.
Yes, most of the radium for Vienna's Radium Institute was sourced from the Yahimov, a mine in this region. This region shares its name with a kingdom founded by the Premeslid dynasty.
Sure. Okay. Transylvania.
Bohemia, you get 20.
That's
Toss of 17. An artist once remarked that a man with one of these objects is just a middle-class man in his anonymity. 3 of these objects appear at different angles below 3 different waxing crescent moons in the painting The Mysteries...
heads.
No. Mysteries of the Horizon. A man who listens to a gramophone in the center of a painting is flanked by 2 unseen men who are holding a bat and net, respectively, while wearing these objects. Dozens of floating men wear these objects in the painting Golconda, which are also worn by 2 men in The Menaced Assassin. The Son of Man features an apple covering the face of a man wearing, for 10 points, what headwear that features prominently in many René Magritte works.
Hats.
Say again, sorry?
Hats.
Yes. Sorry. I will prompt on what specific type.
Bowler hats.
Yes.
Okay.
Bonus. A theory proposed in 2014 holds that bats act as reservoirs of zoonotic viruses because they cannot help but induce this symptom during flight. For 10 points each, name this increase in body temperature caused by an infection.
Fever.
Yes. The 6th edition of this book was the first to argue that bats fly to regulate their body temperature. Conveniently, the first Archaeopteryx fossil was discovered 2 years after this book's first edition was published in 1859.
Yeah, on the origin of species.
Yes, flight as fever may explain why bats are unaffected by these viruses that cause hemorrhagic fevers in humans. This family of thread-like viruses includes Reston virus, Ebola, and Marburg. Answer, please.
Rod shape.
They're called filoviruses, F-I-L-O.
How much are the bonus?
It was 20 on the bonus?
And we want to protest.
Yes, so give me 1 sec to pull this up. So
30 points heads.
currently 300 for Churchill, 250 for Lambert. And yeah, we can launch it.
60 points. Yeah.
No, it's
Okay, protesting team is Lambert. I'm just going to read this out loud as I go through it. It'll make it easier for everybody. Okay. Okay. The current score of the game after the end of the cycle is 250 to 300.
and we're on which also.
That was just 17, so there's 3 to go. The protest was on the toss-up. It was on toss-up 17. The answer to the question is bowler hats. The player buzz was midway through the title, The Mysteries of the Horizon. I had marked that you had buzzed when I said the word of. So it was 3 of these objects appear at different angles below 3 different waxing crescent moons and the painting The Mysteries of Buzz. Okay.
What's his name?
The given answer was heads, which was rejected without prompt. I'm going to go ahead and tell you what the rest of the answer line was for transparency's sake. So it was prompt on hats by mentioning what specific type, prompt on men or humans or human bodies by asking what object are they wearing.
Yeah, you should prompt on heads then, yeah.
It was not listed in the answer line, so I did not do it, but I'm just telling you that that is the case. Okay. So the protest is that the answer should have been prompted but was not, I'm assuming. Okay. The protesting team's justification is heads should have been equally prompted.
Humans were to be prompted, and heads should also be prompted, since the heads are technically under. Yeah, the hats are on the heads.
Churchill, do you have any counter?
No, that's like 100% valid, yeah.
Okay. Can both teams confirm they've read the information, that I've read this information to you and it's gone through? Okay. So to do the math really quickly, the buzz was in power, so it could have been a potential plus 50 to this team, and it would be minus 30 on this side, so 80 points in protest. Okay. Toss-up 18. In microwave spectroscopy, the product of this quantity squared, the reduced mass, and the line spacing is always constant. At this quantity's equilibrium value, the Morse potential is minimized. The strongest peaks in an IR spectrum arise from modes that increase this quantity because it is directly proportional to dipole moment. For a simple cubic crystal, this quantity equals the unit cell lattice constant and can be measured by X-ray diffraction. Resonance explains why this measured quantity for ozone is halfway between its value.
Like bond number?
No, sorry.
Bond.
Is halfway between its value for oxygen and oxide. This quantity equals the sum of two hard sphere radii and is roughly an angstrom for two carbon atoms. For 10 points, name this distance between two covalent nuclei. Yes. Bonus, the naive innocence of this novel's narrator contrasts with his knowledge of prussic acid and his act of casually leaving his friend with a penknife. For 10 points each, name this novel in which Leonora vengefully drives her philandering husband to suicide by spoiling the chaste love he has for his ward Nancy. Answer, please.
Lady Chatterley's Lover.
This is The Good Soldier. The Good Soldier is by this editor of the English Review, who also wrote the Parades and Tetralogy. Yes, even though The Good Soldier has little to do with it, Ford changed the title from The Saddest Story to boost morale for this war. Wilfred Owen wrote the poem Dulce et Decorum Est about this war.
World War I.
20. Toss-up 19. In one play by this author, Lady Utterword explains how the stables are the real center of the household, while at the title home of inventor Captain Shotover. Power, great buzz.
What? What's the answer?
George Bernard Shaw.
Oh.
GB Shaw, right?
Bonus, answer the following about the multicultural city of Mardin for 10 points each. Much of Mardin was built by the Ardakids, who held this title used by Turkic rulers in Central Asia and the Middle East. A leader of the Golden Horde with this honorific in his name lent his name to a present-day Central Asian country.
Sultan Pasha.
It might be Bay. It might be Bay.
Answer?
Bay.
Say the answer?
Bay. Bay.
Yes, yes.
Nice.
Mardin's Saffron Monastery was built by these people who have lived in the surrounding region of Tur Abdin for centuries. Ashurbanipal led a Mesopotamian empire named after these people.
This is Syrian. Are you
Yeah.
sure?
No.
I think it's a Syrian.
They're serious.
Yes.
Nice.
This empire's founder captured Mardin during his campaigns against the Ak-Koyunlu, but that founder later gave up Mardin after losing the Battle of Chaldiran.
Which other one is like, it's between Ottoman and Safavid.
Answer, please.
Abbas the Great.
It's Safavids.
Wait,
No,
you
it's
just
not the same, but it's fine. It's already
okay,
good.
it's
already
okay,
good.
it's
Alright,
okay.
So that's 20.
Yeah.
Actually, got that. That's video.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's also 20. This ion is recruited to both activation loops of a dimer formed when cells detect each other's ephrins. Paul II's tail repeatedly reacts with this ion before it initiates transcription. Tau protein reacts with this ion and aggregates into neurofibrillary tangles. Binding of this ion controls the activity of the oncoproteins HER2 and RAS. A 7.4 kcal bond between two of these ions is drawn with a squiggle because it's so easy to break. Serines and tyrosines react with this ion to turn on each step of the MAPK pathway. Enzymes that transfer this ion act as nodes in cell signaling cascades and are called kinases. For 10 points, 3 of what ions bond to adenosine in the molecule?
Phosphate ions?
Yes.
Nice.
Good job.
Bonus, Anglicans fond of high ritual are often called smells and these objects Christians. For 10 points each, name these objects used twice while the words of institution are spoken in some Lutheran churches. These objects are used to signal the start of Mass.
These objects.
Bells.
Yeah, bells.
Yes, Lutherans use bells to signify this two-word doctrine, which holds that Jesus' role during communion is both substantial and true and not merely symbolic.
Holy Spirit. No. Holy
Two-word
Trinity.
doctrine.
I don't know. Holy Trinity.
Holy Trinity.
Its real presence. A lynch bell was the last of 3 bells that rung during these events in an Old English custom. Anglican sermons at these events recite ashes to ashes as earth is heaped over a coffin.
Funeral.
That is 20. So a final score, 320 for Lambert, 330 for Churchill with 80 points still under protest.
We still have to play the question.
Matters.
We have to play another question, right?
We will not, no.
No, there's a.
When that happens, yes, but that will be a couple of rounds from now.
So if the protest is
It will get ruled on
Do you go to Centennial?
Yeah.
Oh.
What are you doing in Boston?
I work in biotech.
Where?
Checks out.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
what biotech place?
That's a startup. You've probably not heard
Oh,
of.
is it Sunbird Bio?
Bluebird? No.
I know people.
Well,
I know a
what's it
couple people
called?
that's bio startups.
Wait, if it's a bio startup, do you have like your own building, or are you using like?
We're renting space. We'll go into this later.
Okay.
Let's get ready. Let's get toss up one started. Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck with teams. It's round. Oh man, where are we at? 14. Toss up one. Refugees from this event struggle to adapt to the U.S. in the novel Sons and Other Flammable Objects. A group of women discuss their disillusionment with this event in the Gatsby section of a book, which also includes sections like
The Iranian Revolution.
That's a great buzz. Power. Bonus. A form of this disease, dubbed the King's Evil, was cured after rulers gifted a golden touch coin to the afflicted. For 10 points each, name this disease. During a New England scare over this disease, Mercy Brown's heart and liver turned into an ash tonic, which was fed to her victim.
Is this like witchcraft?
Answer, please. Tuberculosis. The first victim of a TB outbreak was identified as this type of being, which sucked the life out of their relatives. Wooden stakes were hammered through these bloodsuckers as they lay in their graves.
Vampires.
Yes. Vampire prevention protocol, sometimes used a padlock and sickle to facilitate this physical action on a corpse. Gawain plays a game involving this action with the Green Knight.
Oh, yeah. Decapitation.
Yeah, 20. Toss up 2. A 19th century, thank you. A 19th century literary tradition named for these objects conveyed difficult ideas through satirical verse and drawings and was popularized by Jose Posada. During Toluca's Alfeñique fairs, artists primarily sculpt these objects, which are inscribed with the names of loved ones. Porfirio Diaz was satirized in a zinc etching depicting one of these objects with a feathered hat, which later inspired black and white costumes embodying La Catrina. These objects are...
Skulls.
That is 10. Bonus. In deep sequencing, each of these raw data is unique. For 10 points each, give this term for the millions of base-called DNA sequences output by next-generation sequencers. Illumina and nanopore technologies respectively generate short and long types of these data. Answer, please.
Strings.
They're called sequencing reads. Sanger sequencing, on the other hand, only gives one read per sample, which is why the monumental project to obtain this full sequence of every human chromosome took more than a decade.
Human Genome Project.
Yes. Next-gen sequencing can read a genome in a day, and the slowest step is just waiting for one of these enzymes to attach adapters. These enzymes form phosphodiester bonds and seal nicks at Okazaki fragments.
DNA. Heligase.
Answer? Ligase, you get 10. Toss-up 3. The covalent compound of bromide and this ion couples proteins to affinity resins. Adenosine replaces this ligand on cobalt during vitamin B12 biosynthesis. Carbonyl and this isoelectric ion lie at the strong field end of the spectrochemical...
Carbon monoxide.
No. Strong field end of the spectrochemical series. This pseudo-halide, the simplest carbon nucleophile, reacts by SN2 to lengthen alkyl chains. This ion is dumped into rivers by gold miners using it as a leachant. When this ion binds to cytochrome C oxidase and shuts off the electron transport chain, the victim's skin turns blue. Nitriles are made from this ion, which comprises a carbon atom triple bonded to nitrogen. Yes. Bonus, this practice avoided the need for an expensive private act of parliament and usually required the person conducting it to pay a market toll. For 10 points each, name this common law practice that the drunk title character engages in to separate himself from Susan and her child, Elizabeth Jane, in the novel The Mayor of Casterbridge.
Divorce.
Yeah,
Divorce.
No, this is wife selling. The Mayor of Casterbridge was written by this author of Tess of the D'Urbervilles. Yes, a French cartoon lampooning the British depicted this stock character selling his wife at a market. This beef-loving yeoman, often called Britain's version of Uncle Sam, was created by Dr. Arbuthnot.
Yeah.
Answer, please.
John.
Prompt.
Professor John.
It's not Professor John.
Professor John.
John Bull. You get 10. Toss-up 4. This person led a crowd in Troy, New York that protected a man named Charles Now from kidnapping. The longest passage in a record by newspaper editor Sidney Howard Gay is an exploit led by this captain. This person only became eligible for a pension after marrying Nelson Davis. A mission led by this person and James Montgomery gave its name to a feminist collective. Sarah Hopkins Bradford wrote 2 biographies about this woman. This spy helped guide Union gunboats during the comeback.
Harriet Tubman?
Yes. That's 10. Bonus. Julie Meretu's chaotic paintings were inspired by this artist's idea of the inevitable implosion of constructed spaces. For 10 points each, this expressionist artist of The Blue Rider, who titled his abstract paintings Compositions and Improvisations. Yes, black swirling lines represent a stadium in a Meretu series in this form. George Dyer's suicide inspired a black series of oil paintings on canvas in this form by Francis Bacon.
Triptych.
Yes, in 2021, this museum hosted a retrospective of Meretu's career. This New York Museum's current building was designed by Renzo Piano, and it hosts a biennial exhibition of upcoming American artists.
I think Whitney, yeah.
Whitney.
30. Toss-up 5. A radio symphony from this country with a popular YouTube channel has most recently been led by Andres Orozco Estrada and...
Frankfurt?
Sorry, no. And Elaine Altinoglu. The logo of a record label from this country depicts a tulip pattern inside a yellow cartouche. A composer from this country was inspired by Edith Piaf's song Non, je ne regrette rien for a soundtrack that includes the track Time. A record label from this country that is partially named Gramophone has many recordings made by Claudio Abbado and Herbert von Karajan, who each served as principal conductor of an orchestra in this country. A composer from this country wrote the scores to Inception and The Dark Knight. For 10 points, name is birth country of Hans Zimmer.
Germany?
Yes, sorry about that.
That's rough. Oh, goodness.
Your bonus, Sampath Chawla is mistaken for a holy man while living in a guava tree in a novel by an author with this surname. For 10 points each, give this surname shared by authors Anita and Kiran, the latter of whom depicted the lives of Indian immigrants to the U.S. in her novel The Inheritance of Loss.
Decide.
Yes. In the 3-body problem, Yewinja compares deforestation and pesticide use to the Cultural Revolution after reading this landmark environmentalist book by Rachel Carlson.
Yeah. Silent Spring.
Yes. This author described the tree-covered world of the Terrans in The Word for World is Forest. She also depicted the ambisexual Gethenians in The Left Hand of Darkness.
Liquid.
Yes, 30. Toss-up 6. In a demonic myth, a moisture goddess represented by one of these objects returns home after a dog baboon tells her the story of the mouse and the lion. A downward diagonal line ending in a spiral juts off one of these objects, which was pacified after being transformed into the Uraeus. One of these objects alternatively names the distant goddess. Power. Bonus, Kelvin and Helmholtz name a form of this condition that arises when adjacent layers of a fluid with different densities flow at different speeds. For 10 points each, name this condition in which disturbances at fluid interfaces grow more extreme over time on their own.
Instability.
Yes, the Taylor-Goldstein equation describes Kelvin-Helmholtz instability, in part by assuming that density variations only affect this force. The Brunt-Väisälä frequency is also known as the frequency of this gravitational force.
Buoyancy.
Yes, buoyant force equals the negative product of volume, density, and this quantity that approximately equals 9.8 meters per second squared.
Oh yeah, little g.
30. Toss-up 7. In a play, a character in one of these locations is struck in the head with a baseball bat, landing 2 men in prison. In a play primarily set in one of these locations, a lockout at Olsted's factory divides Cynthia and Tracy. In a play, 2 characters who fought on opposite sides of the Boer War discuss
Bar.
power. Your bonus, before she leaves for Barbados, Selena throws jewelry at the steps of buildings in this borough at the end of a Polly Marshall novel. For 10 points each, and name this borough. The title's a Betty Smith novel in which Francie idolizes a tree of heaven.
So 1-5. It's on Staten Island, so Brooklyn?
Yes. This Barbadian author included fragments of Caribbean dialects and African languages he dubbed nation languages as part of the oral poetry in his Arrivance trilogy. This author wrote Born to Slow Horses.
Is it author from Barbados?
Answer, please.
The banana boat.
It's Kamal Brathwaite. A Barbadian man with this first name escaped slavery with a flying machine in a novel by Essie Edugyan. An author with this first name wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Washington. Yeah. Washington.
20. Toss-up 8. Description acceptable. Pharnaces II attempted to take advantage of this conflict to retake land for the kingdom of Pontus, but was swiftly defeated. In the final battle of this conflict, a misunderstanding about the movements of troops under Libanius led to a rout at Munda in Hispania. Prior to the siege of Alexandria, a leader in this conflict cried upon being presented the seal ring and severed head of his rival.
Like the Julius Caesar and Pompey wars.
Yes, that is 10. Bonus, the Qing dynasty enacted a disastrous embargo of all its ports to keep its rhubarb trade limited to this country's post of Kyakhta. For 10 points each, name this country that settled its Siberian borders with the Qing at the 1689 Treaty of Nerchinsk.
Russia.
Yes, this emperor carried out the rhubarb embargo and the 10 Great Campaigns. This Qing emperor relinquished his throne so he would not rule longer than his grandfather, the Kangxi emperor. Yes, the Russian diplomat Nikolai Spafari stole Qing secrets through Ferdinand Verbiest, a Jesuit missionary with this other profession. Zhang Heng created a hydraulics-powered armillary sphere used by this profession.
Go with the scientist.
Answer, please.
Scientist.
I can prompt on that.
Oh.
Answer.
Chemist.
It's an astronomer, so you get 20. Toss-up 9. Neoplatonists identified this concept as the third hypostasis after the one and nous, and believed that there was a world type of this concept, similar to that described in the Timaeus. This concept...
Spirit.
Yeah, power. I can take that. Bonus, Sarah Willis juxtaposed Cuban dance rhythms with Mozart's 4 works of this type in her Mozart y Mambo project. For 10 points each, name this type of piece. Mozart called his friend Joseph Leutgeb ass, ox, and simpleton, and the notes to the third work of this type written for him. It's a horn concerto. Mozart used this form in the Hunt theme third movement of his last horn concerto. His 11th piano sonata contains a Turkish march written in this form, sometimes called this form a la turca.
Rondo.
Yes. Willis also recorded Serenade Mambo, an arrangement of this Mozart piece. This G major serenade for strings is cataloged as K525, but is better known under a nickname.
Dissonance.
It's Eine kleine Nachtmusik, a little night music. You get 10. Toss-up 10. The Ecology of These Structures names a 2003 collection featuring Richard T.T. Foreman and subtitles Ben Goldfarb's 2023 book. California bearing ratio measures the strength of components of these structures, which can include base, binder, and wearing courses above a subbase and subgrade. These structures contribute to habitat fragmentation via their namesake barrier effect.
Like roads.
Power. During the reign of Augustus III, only one of these bodies succeeded in passing any laws at all. For 10 points each, name these Polish legislative bodies. A great one of these bodies passed the Constitution of May 3rd, 1791.
Same.
Yes, every member of the Sejm was granted the liberum form of this power, allowing them to nullify any legislation. In the U.S., Congress can override the president, exercising this power with a 2/3 vote.
Veto.
Yes, one way to get around the impasse in the Sejm was to form one of these institutions. One of these institutions, founded at Bar Fortress, attempted to stop Russian incursion into Poland in the 1760s. It's a confederacy or confederation. You get 20. And that's that. I have Belmont 80, Innovation Academy 270.
Alright, let's say about like 270.
Yes, what do you have?
This does not equal 210.
Oh, you see,
Sorry to hear
He doesn't know how to math.
What do you have?
He said
No.
200 plus 30 equals 210.
I can do math sometimes. It's
Toss up 11. In a story by this author, a GPT-like system produces historical, satirical, philosophical, or straight styles and is called the Great Automatic Grammatizer. This author described playing a prank on Mrs. Pratchett by putting a dead rat in a jar of sweets. This author's experience as a volunteer fighter pilot inspired his
roll doll.
power. Did you guys see the lights just flicker there?
No, that was probably a plane.
Oh, okay, okay. I said fighter pilot and a plane showed up. Bonus, the best single molecule magnets are made from these paramagnetic elements. For 10 points each, and name these elements that make up the top row of the F block on the periodic table above the actinides. Yes, exact term required. The lanthanide in a single molecule magnet is bonded to bulky ligands to slow down this process. The timescale for free induction decay after a nucleus resonates in NMR is the rate of this process.
Maybe contraction. I think maybe retention.
Okay, got it.
Retention.
It's relaxation. Molecular magnets are usually oriented in this asymmetrical Vesper molecular geometry. A central atom is bonded to 4 ligands and has a lone pair in this geometry, which is named for an object it ostensibly resembles.
Trigonal pyramid, maybe? Trigonal pyramid?
It's seesaw or sawhorse. Yeah, 10. Toss up 12. Artworks in this medium were opposed by the rupture generation. A side panel to an artwork in this medium depicts black and white centaurs watching as Prometheus steals fire. The largest artwork in this medium, which begins with an erupting volcano, is in the Polyforum
Mural.
Power.
Yeah.
Bonus, John Skelton described his works of this type as ragged, tattered, and jagged due to his tendency to use Latin or French words. For 10 points each, name these works. To describe the Tay Bridge disaster, William McGonagall created a notoriously bad doggerel, which is a type of this work.
An article?
Poem. Yeah, like a poem.
Answer.
It's a poem.
Answer?
Poem.
Yes.
Yeah.
This American humorist wrote a doggerel poem about the bovine elk. One end is moo, the other milk. This poet remarked, candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker, in his reflection on ice breaking.
Who did that? I don't know. Lowell.
It's Ogden Nash. The host interrupts Sir Toppus's obnoxious doggerel poetry in this collection about a group of storytelling pilgrims by Geoffrey Chaucer. 20.
The furry tales.
Toss up 13. Ragnar Frisch modeled these things with impulse and propagation mechanisms. Burns and Mitchell's 1946 book on measuring these things began the NBER's research on their chronology. These things cause short-term fluctuations in time series data that can be removed by the Hodrick-Prescott filter. Kydland and Prescott's real theory of these things argues that they are efficient responses to productivity shocks, and that monetary policy is ineffective in smoothing them.
For recession?
I can prompt on that by asking, what are those phases of?
Oh, like the, sort of like the market cycle, financial cycle.
I'm going to prompt you again.
Like,
Sorry. These periods are driven by creative destruction, according to Joseph Schumpeter. Output and employment hit lows in the troughs of these periods. Alternating booms and busts characterize, for 10 points, what oscillations in the general level of economic activity.
Business cycle.
Yeah, sorry, that is a specific term that I need. Business cycles is the word that I
Business cycle, that's
needed.
what it's called, cyclical.
Don't worry about it. Your turn.
That was Krish that got the buzz?
Yeah.
Okay. Your bonus. NASA's NAMES project studied these phenomena in the North Atlantic. For 10 points each, name these biological phenomena. A common consequence of nutrient pollution. Geoengineering via iron fertilization would seek to cause these phenomena.
Algae blooms.
Yes. NAMES studied how phytoplankton blooms give rise to these substances. Saharan dust crossing the Atlantic exemplifies these suspensions of fine particles in the air, which are emitted by air-polluting spray bottles.
Aerosol.
Yes, phytoplankton blooms giving rise to sulfate aerosols are integral to the negative feedback loop in this hypothesis. James Lovelock co-names this hypothesis, which draws from his Gaia hypothesis.
I have no clue.
Answer, please.
Punctuated equilibrium.
This is called CLAW, C-L-A-W. You get 20. Toss of 14. Laure Saint-Raymond won a 2015 Fermat Prize for showing the Navier-Stokes limit of an equation named for this scientist. This scientist's Stossel-Ansatz of molecular chaos simplifies the collision integral term of an equation that decomposes the time derivative of the distribution function. A value derived by this scientist relates the kinetic energy contributed by each degree of freedom to temperature via the equipartition theorem. This scientist names a transport equation.
Boltzmann.
Yes. 10. Bonus. This author attributed some of his musical compositions to a character he created while working as a music critic, the eccentric composer Johannes Kreisler. 10 points each. Name this author of a story featuring the automaton Olympia. Nathaniel jumps from a tower due to his fear that Coppelius will steal his eyes in this author's story, The Sandman.
Hoffman.
Yes. In Hoffman's novel about the life and opinions of this character, Chrysler's biography on random sheets of waste paper gets interspersed with this character's autobiography.
Wilhelm.
This is Tomcat Murr, M-U-R-R, which is what I needed. Hoffman's story inspired this ballet, in which Marie sees the title toy fight the seven-headed Mouse King. 20. Toss of 15. This material and shells were used to depict the Bungdakkerik and other ocean swells in artifacts made by the Marshallese Islanders. Traditional alayas were made from a type of this material called koa by Hawaiians. The introduction of rats, rather than intertribal warfare, discussed in the book Collapse.
Wood.
Power, Miss Buzz.
Deforestation.
Sorry.
What category is that? I have no clue. It's probably social science.
Sorry. Contact just blinked out. 1 second.
Oh,
Your bonus. Fruits are hung above idols of this deity in his Chaturthi festival for 10 points each. Name this Hindu deity whose clay idols are dissolved in water at the end of that festival. Yes. In Karnataka, Gari Haba, which venerates this mother of Ganesha, is celebrated a day before Ganesh Chaturthi. This Hindu goddess forms the Tridevi alongside Lakshmi and Saraswati. Original language term required. During Ganesh Chaturthi, the god is offered this favorite food of his, a rice dumpling, which typically contains a delicious combination of coconut and jaggery. I do not have that. I have modak, or a series of other things.
Laddu is another. It's another word for it. It's another language.
Well, it's a different language.
Yeah.
That's a coconut. No, it's like I don't know. That's completely different.
I mean, you can protest. You're welcome to.
I think I'm wrong. Could you read the other?
I have modak or modakam or modaka or kolokatai or kadumu or kadubu or kozakata or or modagam.
For like that part of the anyway,
We'll rule wrong for now. So
it's
20 points.
It's a different dish.
Okay, cool. At the 3/4 mark, I have 150 for Belmont, 370 for Innovation Academy. Here's toss of 16. A man asks this novel's narrator whether he has seen a divine face emerge from the stones on his wall. This novel's narrator claims that he could get used to living in a tree trunk and wishes for a crowd of spectators to
The Stranger.
Power. Bonus, this man supposedly got one of his men to marry the sister-in-law of President Grant in order to stop the Treasury from interfering in a scheme. For 10 points each, name is financier whose cornering of the gold market caused Black Friday in 1869.
I was going to say J. Gold. Oh, maybe Frisk?
It's gold. In 1872, Gold lost control of a railway named for this location. A wedding of the waters commemorated the 1825 completion of a project named for this location.
The Pacific? Yeah. Pacific?
It's Lake Erie. During the election of 1884, a mob threatened Gold not to manipulate the use of this technology. Samuel Morse invented a system for sending messages using this technology.
Telegraph.
10. Toss-up 17. A member of a political family in this state hosts the podcast Latina to Latina. A businessman in this state named Whale Hanna offered a politician from this state a no-show job at his halal meat company. In 2024, a court abolished this state's notorious county line ballot system, hurting the chances of the wife of the state's governor in a Senate race against Andy Kim.
New Jersey.
That is 10.
I don't think so.
Bonus, a Marjorie Shostak ethnography compiles interviews with Nisa, a woman from this desert. For 10 points each, name this desert. That names a 1980s debate about foraging societies. Richard Lee's essay, Eating Christmas in This Desert, recounts how this desert's San people belittled his gift of a large ox to temper his arrogance.
Kalahari.
Yes. Lee's work with the San led to a 1966 symposium named for man in this role. Feminist anthropologists have criticized the dichotomy between man in this role and woman, the gatherer.
Hunter.
Yes. At the Man the Hunter conference, this anthropologist put forth the thesis that hunter-gatherers are the original affluent society.
Pick one.
Morgan.
It's Marshall Sahlins, Sahlins. You get 20. Toss-up 18. A protein that induces this behavior is synthesized by P/D1 cells. This behavior is suppressed by the peptide and receptor encoded by the mouse OB and DB genes. This behavior is induced by a protein named for the agouti, along with neuropeptide Y, in the arcuate nucleus of the hypothalamus. Postprandial HbA1c is measured immediately after this behavior. Desire to do this behavior is reduced by semaglutide, a GLP.
Eating?
Yeah.
Nice.
Bonus. This film prominently features a leitmotif that is played 9 times to symbolize the budding romance between its two central characters. For 10 points each, Nimbus 2000 film about 2 tenants of a crowded apartment building who discover that their spouses are having an affair with each other.
Interesting.
I don't know. Rent.
Yeah, my favorite movie.
The,
Answer, please.
the living situation.
In the Mood for Love. The director of In the Mood for Love, Wong Kar-wai, is a major figure in the cinema of this city. Kung fu movies starring Bruce Lee are among the highlights of this city's film output.
Hong Kong.
Yes, In the Mood for Love is part of a loose trilogy of films by Wong that includes a film titled for and set in this future decade. In the 2017 film set in this decade, a hologram states, "You look lonely. I can fix that," to a replicant covered in purple
The
light.
2040s, as in
Yes.
Blade Runner 2049.
20 points.
He's literally made.
Toss-up 19. This musician's early recordings, like I'll Chase the Blues Away, were inspired by Connie Boswell. This musician's nonsense lyrics on How High the Moon were included on an album recorded at Duke's Place. Decca pressured this musician into recording well-known songs like Lady Be Good before this musician joined Norman Granz's Verve label. Bobby Darin is name-checked on a cover of Mac the Knife by this
Fitzgerald.
Power.
What a guy.
Bonus, the Black Power gang performed a haka at this man's funeral. For 10 points each, and his prime minister who led New Zealand's National Party from 1974 to 1984. This former accountant's Think Big projects contrasted with the Rogernomics of his successor.
Muldoon.
Yes, many Pacific Islanders were subjected to this process following dawn raids by the Muldoon administration. It's not conversion, but practicing Jews in Spain were subject to this process by the 1492 Alhambra decree.
They were expelled.
Yeah. Muldoon was almost killed at a 1978 meeting of this organization in Sydney. 32 member states of this organization boycotted the 1986 iteration of its games due to Margaret Thatcher's stance on apartheid.
Like IOC. Just say like IOC.
It's the Commonwealth of Nations. 20. And toss up 20. A eunuch named John, who ran an institution for these people in Constantinople, held great power during the reign of Romanos III, an institution in Pennsylvania to benefit these people.
Lepers?
No. Received an enormous endowment from chocolate magnate Milton Hershey. The population of institutions named for these people swelled following Decree 770 issued by Romania's Nicolae Ceausescu. The first private institution to benefit these people in the U.S. was established by Elizabeth Schuyler Hamilton. When war caused an Athenian to become one of these people, he received a state-sponsored education. The youngest of these people at London's Foundling Hospital were sent to wet nurses. For 10 points, name these people who lack parents.
Orphans?
Yes.
Did power end on huge transfer?
Yes. In this country, elephants have expanded the Katoom Cave under Mount Elgon by scratching blocks of salt off its walls. For 10 points each, name this East African country home to Mombasa.
Kenya.
Yes. Mount Elgon is home to a population of swamp monkeys named for a naturalist from this Italian family. Another member of this family names an African capital that was the de facto capital of Free France from 1940 to 1942.
Kinshasa.
It's Bratza. Mount Elgon has one of the largest of these depressions that form from the sinking of the ground into an empty magma chamber. 6 nested examples of these features are present on Olympus Mons.
Caldera.
20. Final score, I have 500 Innovation Academy, 180 Belmont. Great playing.
GG's.
If I can get a signature, yep.
Misrepresentation.
Okay. This game is going to be live streamed. You all set?
We're working on a video.
So please, I said this last game too and it didn't work. But no, I was going to. Oh, that's fine. Whatever. Don't use language that you wouldn't want to go out on the internet.
We made sure of that last
What?
Just say we didn't cuss.
No, we actually no.
That was the one round we didn't cuss.
With the six rounds.
Well, I think that yesterday I might have said
Yeah, just don't say.
No, you didn't say anything.
Just be silent. Just
Alright.
be silent.
Good luck to both teams.
Alright, it's not.
Round 16. 16? 15. 15. Toss-up 1. The first prize awarded by this country's prestigious JINR Institute went to Chinese scientist Wang Gangchang. Scientists in this country once claimed to have discovered a substance called polywater. The scientists working in this country advanced Maturinism, a Lamarckian doctrine that vernalization was more important than natural selection. In the 1940s, 9 scientists in this country starved to death, preserving the VIR seed bank.
Norway.
Sorry, no. Engineers in this country designed the Tu-144, a noisy SST rival to the Concorde. In 1986, this country launched the world's first modular space station, Mir. For 10 points, name this country whose Academy of Sciences was where Trofim Lysenko worked in Leningrad.
USSR.
Yes.
Greg from Seoul definitely Soviet Union.
In January 2024, billionaire Bill Ackman clashed with Business Insider over Business Insider's allegations that Ackman's wife, Neri Oxman, was guilty of this practice. For 10 points each, name this practice. Ackman publicized allegations that Claudine Gay had engaged in this practice, forcing Gay out of a high-profile job.
Like plagiarism.
Yeah.
Yes. Gay was forced to resign from her post as president of this Ivy League university that Mark Zuckerberg briefly attended.
Harvard.
Yes. Following the Gay scandal, a member of this family, who is the chair of the Harvard board, was pressured to resign. A politician from this family used his wealth from the Hyatt fortune to get elected governor in 2018.
Pritzker.
30.
Yeah, I told you.
Nice.
JB.
Yes, JB.
Yep. Okay. Toss-up 2. Gravity-powered harvesting of this phenomenon can be accomplished with thin meshes like shade cloth. This phenomenon names deserts that are dominantly supplied by its drip. When this phenomenon coincides with forest fires, it can be super. A low-altitude temperature inversion causes the Thule example of this phenomenon's radiation type, which depletes via burn-off. Wind passing over a cold surface can cause...
Is it smog?
Yeah, I can take that for power. Specifically fog, but I could take smog until I said smog. Bonus. This galaxy is connected to the Triangulum galaxy by a stream of hydrogen that may indicate a past interaction. For 10 points each, name is second largest spiral galaxy in the local group, which will merge with the Milky Way in 4 to 5 billion years.
Wait, second largest. Isn't it the largest? Andromeda?
Yes.
Wait.
This component of the Milky Way was likely created by a merger early in its history. This hypothetical component is home to older stars and contains a smaller, similarly named component.
Milky Way.
Small, like large Magellanic Cloud.
This is the thick disk. Edwin Hubble showed that Andromeda is a distinct galaxy by observing these stars. These variable stars are useful as standard candles due to their tight period luminosity relation.
Cepheid? It might be Cepheid.
probably Cepheid.
Cepheid?
20.
Nice.
Good job.
Astronomy.
On the first one, shouldn't it say largest? It says second largest in the local group. Just
I can mark it for that later. Yeah, it didn't wind up mattering, so that's good. Toss-up 3. While dying of breast cancer, an author with this surname wrote about her affair with Catherine Peabody Loring. That author with this surname may have inspired a character created by her brother, who delivers a feminist lecture and moves in with Olive Chancellor, the cousin of a
James.
power. Bonus, an essay by Iris Marion Young discusses how pregnancy blurs the line between this concept and the external world. For 10 points each, name this concept contrasted with the mind in Cartesian dualism.
Body.
Yes. Jung cites this philosopher's claim that pregnancy is experienced as the splitting of the subject. This Bulgarian-born philosopher developed the concept of abjection in Powers of Horror.
Bulgarian?
Answer, please.
Grigor.
It's Julia Kristeva. Jung argues that pregnancy undermines the distinction between transcendence and immanence, contrasting this book's description of a group doomed to immanence and barred from transcendence. This book includes sections on facts and myths and lived experience. Answer, please.
Critique of pure reason.
The second sex, you get 10.
Oh, yeah.
Toss-up 4, grave goods unearthed at Canossa show one of these creatures holding a zither, suggesting their role as guardians and psychopomps. Aphrodite saved bootes from these creatures, who were made into crowns following a failed challenge instigated by Hera. Demeter transfigured these handmaidens of Persephone, who resided on a corpse-laden island near the Strait of Messina and its 2 monsters. These creatures drowned themselves if a person passed by while
The sirens?
10.
Yeah.
Bonus, drops are collected during this technique in the receiving flask whenever the temperature plateaus. For 10 points each, name this technique, whose laboratory apparatus consists of a round-bottomed glass flask immersed in a mantle, attached to a tall glass column, with a cold finger on top that leads to the receiving flask.
Distillation.
Yes, the first drop collected in the distillate is the chemical with the lowest value for this temperature, since it vaporizes first.
Boiling point.
Exact term required. Brashig rings and ceramic saddles are used as this type of material in both lab scale and industrial distillation columns. These materials give a purer product by reducing the vapor flow rate. Answer, please.
Condenser.
It's a packing material for a column. You get 20.
Interesting.
Toss-up 5, John Sweller's CLT criticizes constructivist approaches in these places, such as those favored by Jerome Bruner. Carol Dweck first made a distinction between entity and incremental theorists to describe people in these places. To design objectives, workers at these places may use a pyramid of 6 goals called Bloom's taxonomy.
Embassy?
Sorry, no. Workers at these places use the technique of scaffolding to target individuals' zone of proximal development. Inquiry-based approaches have become widespread in these places to promote 21st century skills, like critical thinking. Flipped examples of these places may use take-home online lectures. For 10 points, name these places that educate children.
Schools.
Yeah. Jai Singh II, the first Sawai of Jaipur, translated Euclid's Elements into Sanskrit and relied on a zij created by Muhammad Shah Rangila to construct one of these buildings. For 10 points each, name these facilities, examples of which include Jaipur's Jantar Mantar.
Probably observatory. Observatory?
Yes,
Nice.
this Mughal emperor conferred the title of Sawai on Jai Singh II. This emperor locked away his father Shah Jahan and reinstituted the jizya.
Aurangzeb.
Jai Singh also created one of these objects known as Jaivana, which was only used during a demonstration to Muhammad Shah. The Hungarian engineer Orban built one of these weapons known as the Basilic that brought down Constantinople's walls in 1453.
Cannon?
30.
Yes.
Toss-up 6, this king largely avoided his capital after Parisians rioted on rumors that officials were harvesting the blood of children to treat leprosy. Although this monarch founded the École Militaire, his troops under the Prince of Soubise were humiliated by the Prussians at the Battle of Rossbach. This monarch's father-in-law, Stanislaw I, gave up...
Charles.
No. Gave up claims to the Polish throne on advice of this king's chief minister, Cardinal Fleury. This king's namesake art style was promulgated by Madame de Pompadour and evolved into Rococo. The loss of Quebec and other expenses from the 7 Years' War led this monarch to supposedly proclaim, "After us, the deluge." For 10 points, name this French monarch who succeeded the Sun King.
Louis 15.
Yes. Ukrainian composer Nikolai Daletsky's 1677 treatise Grammatica introduced the first known version of this diagram. For 10 points each, name this diagram. Notes separated by a tritone appear on opposite sides of this diagram.
Circle of fifths.
Yes. One of the first internationally recognized Ukrainian composers was Vasyl Barvinsky, who wrote a Ukrainian piece of this type. A clarinet glissando opens a George Gershwin piece of this type for piano and jazz band.
Rhapsody.
Yes, Kiev-born composer Reinhold Glier wrote a modern E-flat major concerto for this instrument. Germaine Taillefer wrote a concertino for this instrument and dedicated her sonata for it to Nicanor Zavaleta.
Flute.
It's a harp. You get 20.
Solid.
Toss-up 7. This quantity for a chemical equals its generation minus consumption term in a mole balance. Langmuir-Hinchelwood theory assumes this quantity equals the number of occupied adsorbent sites times the turnover number. If 1 over this quantity is plotted against 1 over concentration, the x-intercept is minus 1 over the Michelson constant. This quantity times the stoichiometric coefficient equals the time derivative of molarity in the differential form of its empirical law. This quantity plateaus at V max as the concentration...
Reaction rate.
10.
Rate constant, right? Same thing, right?
I could accept either, yeah. Bonus. A Louis Menand essay on how to misread this author cites her sister Cassandra burning their letters as a reason for a lack of biographical insight. For 10 points each, name this author. Menand notes how Elizabeth Bennet misreads Mr. Darcy in this author's novel Pride and Prejudice.
Austin.
Yes. Menand refutes claims of Austen as apolitical by analyzing how the enclosure of land in this novel leads thieves to steal Mrs. Weston's turkeys. Mr. Knightley later marries the title character of this novel. Yes. Menand closes by highlighting the little provisions the Austens had after the death of Jane's father George, who had this profession. An Austen character with this profession desires to set an example of matrimony by marrying Elizabeth Bennet, gets rejected, and then turns to Charlotte.
Yeah, so what does he do? I don't actually know. Wait, is it for church?
Answer, please.
Doctor.
He's a priest or a clergyman. Mr. Collins. You get 20. Toss-up 8. Haydn's 82nd Symphony earned its nickname by imitating a form of this instrument associated with dancing bears. Gavotte may be extended with a section named after a type of this instrument called the musette. The Galician gaita is one of these instruments, another type of which may play pibroch tunes and was once classified as a weapon of war.
Bagpipe.
That's power.
Nice. I thought it was a piano.
Wait.
Dirk von Baberen inspired this artist's depiction of a black-robed sex worker in his painting The Procuress. For 10 points each, name this artist. In 2022, the National Gallery of Art determined that Girl with a Flute was probably not painted by this artist, reducing the total number of surviving works by this artist of The Music Lesson to about 35.
Vermeer.
Yes, Vermeer reproduced Baberen's The Procuress in his painting The Concert, which has been missing since it was stolen from this museum in 1990. This Boston museum also houses The Rape of Europa.
Gardner.
Yes. Baberen was a member of the Utrecht-based school of artists known for their admiration of this Italian master who painted The Culling of St. Matthew.
Caravaggio.
30. Toss-up 9. One person in this work interprets a hairpin in dish soap as a premonition that another character will return to him. That character hallucinates about walking back from ancestral Africa for 300 years in this work after he ties cinder blocks to his feet in an abortive treasure-finding scheme. In this work, Mock Hillman follows a line of power.
Nice.
In the 1950s, a popular joke held that this organization's purpose was to keep the Russians out, the Americans in, and the Germans down. For 10 points each, name its military alliance. Dwight Eisenhower served as its first supreme commander.
NATO.
Yes. NATO founding signer Robert Schuman was instrumental in forming this economic alliance between France, West Germany, Italy, and the Benelux nations that was named for 2 commodities.
Oh, it's coal and steel.
I need more.
Coal and steel alliance.
So it's the European coal and steel community. I needed all of that. In 1998, Bill Clinton designated this country as a major non-NATO ally. This country's economy cratered following the neoliberal Menemism period in the late 1990s.
Argentina.
Yeah, it's 20.
Oh, we could 30 that. Good one.
Toss-up 10. This leader withdrew his country from the Court of Human Rights following a dispute with TV station owner Baruch Ifker. TV crews routinely captured this leader in the north of his country, personally directing flood relief during a particularly bad El Nino season in 1997. Under the campaign of Change in 90, this
Fujimori.
power.
Oh, that's good.
Cambio 9.
This language, whose name means well made, was used for the oldest surviving linguistic treatise. For 10 points each, named this language, which was also used to write epics like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. Yeah. The oldest surviving linguistic treatise, the Ushtadhyadi, was written by this ancient author. This author employed a recursive meta-language to describe every aspect of Sanskrit grammar.
Kalidasa.
That's Daktiputra Panini.
Yeah.
Panini used the grammatical marking lun to denote the aorist type of this linguistic feature. Latin usually combines this linguistic feature with grammatical aspect and has 6 of these features in the indicative mood.
Oh, tenses. Yeah.
Answer?
No. Tenses?
Yeah. 20. And that's the half. I have Lambert 200, TJ 170.
Wait, how many tosses did we get? We got 5.
It is actually the exact
No,
same.
but we can get a 200. We had 170.
I know.
No, we have 200.
Stop smiling.
This character was played by Paul Scofield in a stark 1962 Beckett-inspired production by Peter Brook. An actor playing this character collapses while repeating the line, "The wren goes to it," in the opening of Station 11. This character despairingly declares, "Oh, reason not the need," after earlier criticizing a response with, "Nothing will come of nothing."
So just King Lear.
Power.
Oh my god. Okay.
A Society for Female Cigar Smokers is named for this author, who was known for wearing male clothing without a permit. For 10 points each, name this author of rustic novels like The Devil's Pool and Francois Le Champi. The protagonist escapes her elderly husband, Colonel Del Mare, and runs away with Ralph to Réunion in her novel, Indiana.
You already have Colette, so it's not.
I mean,
Answer, please.
Sand.
Yes. This author of Les Miserables said that Sand was an idea and a great woman in his eulogy for her.
Hugo.
In a novel by this author, the narrator's mother lulls him to sleep by reading Francois Le Champi and kissing him goodnight. That novel by this author begins, "For a long time, I went to bed early."
Probably Proust.
truth.
30. Toss-up 12. The Afghani Dari language refers to these things with the Arabic names of certain constellations. As told by the Surah At-Tawbah, polytheists practicing Nasi manipulatively postponed 4 sacred instances of these things to justify fighting. Rajab is among the 4 sacred instances of these things. These divisions of the Hijri end upon the observance of Hilal after sunset. A period of mourning, named for one of these things, features self-flagellations on Ashura in remembrance of Karbala. One of these things, which translates to scorching heat in reference to fasting.
Is it like months of the Islamic calendar?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
I wanted. I didn't know. Are we died? Like that's
No, that's a
holiday.
Bonus. Taiwanese men raced to grab flags and offerings at the top of Greece towers during grappling ceremonies meant to scare off beings named for having this trait. For 10 points each, give this trait used to describe certain animalistically emotional Chinese ghosts appeased during the Zhongyuan festival, which is alternatively named in English for this kind of ghost.
Hopping?
Sure.
Hopping?
It is a hungry ghost.
Like
During the Zhongyuan festival, these paper objects are set adrift on rivers to guide hungry ghosts with their lights.
Lanterns.
Yes, during the Zhongyuan festival, celebrants burn effigies of the king of hell, Dashye, as well as the merciful goddess Guanyin, who is seen as one of these figures. These figures remain behind to help others achieve enlightenment.
It's like Avalokiteshvara, so what is that? Like a
Oh, it's
Bodhisattva?
Answer,
Bodhisattva.
20.
Thank you, Chris.
Toss-up 13, a culture that made cicadas from this material also used it to plug the 9 orifices of a corpse. The so-called New Zealand form of this material was known by the Maori as punamu. This material was used to depict a were-jaguar on the old...
Jade.
Power.
Yeah.
It's okay. That was the other person.
In 2023, Will Ratcliffe's lab evolved snowflake yeast with this trait to grow 20,000 times bigger than wild-type yeast. For 10 points each, name this property possessed by all fungi except yeast. When food is scarce, slime molds switch to this trait and form fruiting bodies.
Asexual.
Answer, please.
Asexual.
It's multicellular. The size of single cells is capped by the need to keep this parameter above an inverse micron. Allen's rule says this ratio is smaller for animals in cold climates.
Oh, surface area to volume.
Sure.
Surface area to volume ratio.
A really long single cell is impractical because it imposes too much stress on this cellular network of microfilaments and microtubules. Analogous to human bones, this structure provides shape and support to the cell membrane.
Cytoskeleton.
20.
Nice.
Free time.
Timeout? Yeah.
You also get a score check.
Yeah. I have Lambert 200, TJ 290.
And how many toss-ups?
This is going to be toss-up 14, so there are 7 to go.
So we gotta get 3.
So his is over.
Should be open.
That's very good. And there's a ghost. And
There's a
there's
VFA.
Alright, MS, there's gonna be.
There's a VFA.
Bio
too.
is.
Should I just
Is there a myth?
No, with this.
Myth is.
Should
Oh, yeah.
I go aggro on the VFA?
No, I thought I
should
should
just
just bust
Yeah,
it.
so-
No,
Should
I
I just
should.
like
Let's get 2000 first.
Toss-up 14. Joe Brazil's recording of this album, performed live in Seattle, was released by Impulse Records in 2021. Art Davis and Archie Shepp appear on an alternate take of this album's opening track that omits a vocal chant.
I love Supreme.
Power.
I don't even know that.
Kalakmul's dominance is evidenced by the widespread distribution of its emblem glyph depicting this animal. For 10 points each, what creatures appeared in smoke in Mayan visions during bloodletting rituals? An Aztec deity represented by this animal created man using bones from Mictlan.
Serpent.
Yes. El Castillo is alternatively known as the temple of this Mayan feathered serpent, sometimes conflated with Cucumatz and Quetzalcoatl. A legendary king with this deity's name founded the city of Mayapan.
Pachacuri.
It's Kukulkan. The Quiche feathered serpent, Cucumatz, creates the world at the beginning of the Popol Vuh, which tells the story of Xbalanque and Hunapu, who have this relation.
Twins.
Castor and Pollux had this relation.
Twins, right?
Say again?
Twins.
20.
Nice. I wish your heroes to just keep it up. Whatever.
Toss-up 15. The energy spectra of these particles are measured with plastic-covered spheres of BF3 named for Tom W. Bonner. Radiation of these particles displaces lattice atoms in Wigner's disease. The reproduction factor of these particles is denoted eta in Fermi's four-factor formula. A beryllium tamper is used to counteract thermal expansion and increase the reflection of these
Neutrons.
power.
Nice.
787 names are inscribed on a wall in Meligalas, the site of a bloody battle in this country. For 10 points each, name this country where communist EAMELAS guerrillas attempted to overthrow the British-backed monarchy of King Paul. The Truman Doctrine grew out of a response to this country's civil war.
Greece.
Yes, the war erupted following a series of anti-communist riots known by this name. This name was also given to a series of pogroms and anti-Bolshevik killings during the Russian Civil War.
Yeah, it's like the December action, but like I don't know if that word. December action.
It's called the White Terror.
Oh.
The Greek communists were initially supported by this Yugoslavian leader who split with Stalin over non-alignment.
Tito.
20.
I should have.
Toss of 16. A road in this region's steeple brink is named for legendary smuggler Cruel Coppinger. In 1839, 40,000 pounds worth of Brazilian gold dust was stolen from this region's port of Falmouth. In this region, Stanhope Forbes pioneered British plein air painting at an artist's colony in St. Ives. Words still used in the mining industry, such as gunnies, originate from this region's namesake Celtic language. This region's 3,000-year-old tin mine was granted UNESCO World Heritage status in 2006, along with one in bordering Devon. A town in this county on the English Channel titles Gilbert and Sullivan's The Pirates of Penzance. Truro is the largest city in, for 10 points, what peninsular county?
Cape Cod.
No. On the southwest end of England.
York.
It's Cornwall.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Cornwall.
I should have thought
It's
It's okay. It's okay.
You're good.
It's okay.
You're good. It's fine. I was gonna pause it.
Where's Cape Cod though?
We're good.
Is it English?
Toss of 17. While working to enforce this policy, Richard Two-Gun Hart was pitted against his younger brothers. Attempts to circumvent this policy led to people developing Jake Leg syndrome. Enforcement of this policy was the cause of tensions that led to the violent Pineapple Primary.
Like Chicago anti-gang policy.
No.
Prohibition.
Yes.
That's
That's
yeah.
So, one sec, sorry.
Bro, pineapple.
It was
Primary
power.
is
It was
like-
power.
Yes. Okay. Oh my god, bro.
By definition, anharmonic oscillators deviate from this statement. For 10 points each, name this law that states that force equals the negative spring constant times displacement.
Hooke's law.
Yes. Though pendulums are anharmonic oscillators, their motion is approximated by that of harmonic oscillators because for small angle theta, 1 minus 1/2 theta squared is approximately equal to this function of theta.
Tan theta? Is it not?
Yeah, sure.
Tan theta?
Cosine. An anharmonic oscillator whose potential has a small fourth degree term and is an introductory example to this theory. This theory decomposes the Hamiltonian with one of a similar solved system in order to approximate solutions to the Schrodinger equation.
Theory.
No, bro.
Big Bang.
Answer, please.
Complex analysis.
It's perturbation theory. You get 10.
Okay, reset.
Toss of 18. The prototypical cation pi interaction in biology binds this molecule to the tryptophan in a ligand-gated ion channel. This compound's succinyl derivative, or antagonists of its receptors like vecuronium, are administered before endotracheal intubation as a paralytic. Organophosphate poisoning prevents the hydrolysis of an ester bond in this quaternary amine. Nightshade toxins like scopolamine, atropine, muscarine, and
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
I should read that card. Have that card.
Frank Lentrichia and Andrew Dubois essay collection titled For This Technique examines R.P. Blackmore's reading of Wallace Stevens. For 10 points each, name this literary technique emphasized by new critics in which a piece of text is meticulously read for structure and language and then interpreted.
Like deconstructionism?
It's close reading. The collection contains John Crow Ransom's essay on the 10 unrhymed lines and 11 unequal stanzas of this elegy, in which a drowned genius of the shore wanders the perilous flood.
This elegy?
Elegy written.
Answer, please. It's Lycidas by
Oh,
John
by
Milton.
Milton.
Another essay on John Keats as a Sylvan historian examines whether the phrase beauty is truth, truth beauty, diminishes an ode about this title object, which is called an unravished bride of quietness.
Grecian or
10 points.
time out.
Time out.
You guys are up like
What's the score
110
now?
or something.
Wait, what's the score?
270 for Lambert, 350 for Thomas Jefferson with 2 to go.
2 to go. Oh.
I screwed up big time.
No, you don't worry about it.
Okay, there's a lit.
It's not deep. It's not deep.
There's a
Okay.
lit in FA. Oh, actually, there's VFA.
Get one.
Don't worry about it.
Alright, we need luck in the
Okay, we need like 32 though. We need 30 a lot.
Wait, I'm just thinking.
All right, everybody ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
good luck both teams. Here's South of 19. In one poem, this type of animal is teased with a pipe stem and is described as once so beautiful, but now so funny and ugly. In that poem, this type of animal is exiled among hoots and jeers, but formerly laughed at the archer. This prince of cloud
Albatross.
power.
Oh, that's
What was that face last year? Like some albatross.
And so the following about John Pintard, the financier and founder of several historical societies, for 10 points each. Pintard lobbied for this holiday, which was later embraced by the Italian-American community. Many municipalities celebrate Indigenous Peoples' Day instead of this holiday.
Columbus Day.
Pintard helped draft the constitution for this organization. A leader of this organization was depicted with a money bag for a head by cartoonist Thomas Nast.
Tammany Hall.
Pintard co-founded the American Bible Society, whose early efforts included translation of the Bible into these people's language. These people lost control of land in the Walking Treaty.
Oh, Lenape.
30. Toss-up 20, this artist appears seated holding cards in a painting by a contemporary whose studio was a...
Degas.
Sorry, no.
You're good.
Was a short walk from this artist's. In a painting by this artist, a dog sits across from a young girl reclining in a blue armchair. In a painting by this artist, a woman wearing all black holds a fan at her side while looking through binoculars at an opera. This art...
Cassat.
Yeah, that is still in power.
I mixed it up. Degas made it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Onion-shaped examples of these architectural features were created to resemble burning candles or prevent the accumulation of snow. For 10 points each, name these architectural features, which often top cathedrals such as St. Basil's.
Like domes or
Yeah.
Yeah. Onion domes have a larger diameter than these often cylindrical supporting sections that lie beneath a dome. The Hagia Sophia's dome lacks one of these sections and instead lies directly on its pendentives.
Entablature? I don't know.
half arch.
It's a drum or a tholobate.
Oh.
Eight interlaced arches create a tulip-shaped onion dome in this city, surrounded by 4 pavilions called chutrees. A red sandstone fort named for this city surrounds Charba-inspired gardens.
Wait, no, this might be
Maybe the city.
Agra?
20.
Yeah, but what do you think?
Final score, 310 Lambert, 400 TJ. Very good playing.
Good game.
Good game.